r/ask Reddit. What was the most petty thing an adult did to you when you were younger? In Cub Scouts, we were doing the Pinewood Derby. I worked really hard on my car. Open bracket. My dad helped, of course. I had already won the first 3 rounds, and before the final round, one of the dads of the other kids picked up my car to hand it to me. It slipped out of his hand and broke the wheels when it hit the floor. I'm convinced it was not an accident, and he was sabotaging my car so his kid would win. This was over 30 years ago, and I'm still salty about it. One of my packs had to make a rule that only the parent of the scout could touch their car because stuff like this was happening way too often. The Pinewood Derby and the other racing events were meant to build sportsmanship, yet some parents take it way overboard. There's a movie making fun of exactly this called Down and Derby. Yes, same with my son's Cub Scout pack. Only the parent of the scout and the one person checking to see if the cars were qualified, weight, etc. could touch the cars. If this was not followed, the offending party was immediately disqualified. When I expressed my shock at this to my husband because all the families currently involved with scouts are awesome, he said it was due to huge problems in the past that nearly escalated into fisticuffs that these rules were put in place. So, the problem was the parents, not the kids. As usual, sigh. I was feeling sick one day in grade 3 or 4 and the substitute teacher wouldn't let me go to the nurse's office because I didn't look sick enough. I had strep throat. What are you doing? Strep throat? I hate how much I love this comment. I was in middle school at a friend's sleepover. Her parents were very strict. She and her siblings got pulled out of public school to go to a Catholic school, were homeschooled in high school, and they scared the hell out of me. Anyway, it was probably like 11 PM at this sleepover, and her mom hesitantly let us watch the Disney movie Zenon, Girl of the 21st Century. I laughed at her part, and even though her parents were awake, they came into the living room to scold me for being too loud. Not long after, I took a drink of water, choked, and started coughing. They called my parents after 11 PM to come pick me up because I couldn't behave. They had no regard for them being asleep and having jobs to get to early in the morning. They wanted me out for laughing and coughing in the span of about 10 minutes. My parents never let me stay the night at her house again, and are still pissed at them for doing that almost 20 years later. Sounds like they just didn't want you there and were trying to come up with an excuse to send you home. If they were that hesitant to let them watch a really tame Disney movie, they probably saw her as an unknown, outside evil. I was at an Easter egg hunt when I was around 6. It was in a big park area with lots of rocks. I saw a little chocolate egg foil glisten and ran over to pick it up. As I reached my hand out to pick it up, a man trod on my hand to stop me getting it. Then he called his kid over to find it. Jesus. This might be the worst one on here, assaulting a child over a candy. I have a similar story. I was about 12 and at a Mardi Gras parade and an adult stepped on my hand to prevent me from picking up some plastic beads on the ground. Edit. Yes. Mardi Gras. It was a typo. I was sitting in a car during a 12-hour journey from the south to the mid-Atlantic when I wrote this. When I was like 9 or 10, I was rollerblading home from my mom's work, right? And I'm heading down 4th Street, and I find something like $16 on the ground, a 10, a 5, and single, just laying there on the sidewalk next to some outdoor seating at a cafe. Being the obnoxiously nice kid that I was, I pick it up and kind of look around, wondering if anybody lost their money. That's when the lady in the weird sweater vest comes around the corner. We make eye contact and I tell her I found this money, and she goes, "Huh, let me see it," and my naive ass is like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense. She's a grown up. She can sort this out." She looks around, hands me the single back, puts her finger to her mouth in a gesture, then she just ducks off, never to be seen again. And that's why I always just pocket money like a thieving little snake. I don't know that it's a snake-like thing to pocket the money. How are you supposed to track down the owner anyway? It's not like it has their name on it, and who memorizes the serial numbers on their bills? You'll just get some rondo claiming it's theirs, and have to take their word for it. My mom asked if I wanted to play 52 card pickup while my friends were over. I asked her what it was and she said I either want to play or I don't. I told her I didn't want to play anything if I didn't know what it was. She got visibly irritated and threw the cards on the ground and said, "This is 52 card pickup. Pick them up." She then threatened to ground me as she watched me pick the cards up and put them away nicely. I think it was worse because my friends were watching. Edit. Thanks for all the awards and comments. A lot of people are talking about how abusive my mom sounds, and it led to interesting discussions with my husband today. Open bracket. He agrees that my mom was abusive and feels she was way worse than his dad. I think his dad was worse. Admittedly, my family and neighborhood set the bar low on good parenting. Most of my uncles and both of my grandmas were physically abusive. I have cousins that were raped by their own brothers and made to repent as young children for their hand in their own sexual assault. Great job, Mormons. And other cousins who weren't allowed to finish high school. We took in a lot of cousins. My parents also made it very clear who in the family wasn't safe, wasn't to be trusted or listened to, and which uncles could use a solid kick to the dong before I ever give them a hug. My neighborhood has gangs and drive-by shootings and drug dealers and girls selling themselves in junior high. My mom parented by fear the whole neighborhood equally. I don't care if you're the leader of the mafia. My mom will scream in your face. Try her. Nobody shot a gun at our house during drive-bys and no one gave her babies drugs. I literally believed marijuana was barbecue because my whole neighborhood successfully lied to me. But that's another story. I'm 1000% positive the whole neighborhood didn't want to be on her bad side. But I think they all wanted to be on her good side too. We've got neighbors that randomly show up to chat with her, instead of going to their drug dealer next door and buying drugs. She'll be near and keep them strong and clean. So when I say she wasn't perfect, you all know what I mean. But when I say she did a lot of good, I hope you know what I mean too. This bothers me more than it probably should. She was mad because she couldn't outsmart a child and abused her power over you. This hits home a bit. She wasn't the worst mom by a long shot. In a lot of ways she was a great mom. But she certainly parented by control and fear. There really was no choice to not play and not pick up the cards, and we don't have a great relationship to this day. When I was in like 5th grade, I didn't put a book cover on my math book. It required cutting up a paper bag, something similar. We couldn't really afford the fancy ones, and I just never did it. So my math teacher took away my math book, so I couldn't do homework or follow along in class. Like WTF. Who does that to a kid? When my mom found out, she went down to the school and raised hell about interfering with my right to an education or something. The school district was terrified of her until I graduated. We were required to cover our books too, but the teachers who were strict about it made us do it in class. Like literally the day we are handed the book, the teacher got out a big stack of paper bags and we'd spend 10 minutes all making book covers. I like this. They feel strongly about enforcing things and then supply the resources and guidance needed so that everyone can be successful. I wish more people were like this. Grounded me for leaving a hanger on the dryer, then extended it for reading while grounded, then further for sleeping when told I can't read. Shit still pisses me off years later. What were they expecting you to do? Stare holes into space-time continuum? If only I knew. Even my older sister, by a year, came out of her room to ask that same question at the time. Lumpheo. In elementary school, I used to talk to the lunch lady every day, and then the one day I didn't say hi. She came to my lunch table and told me I was fake, phony, and a few other things and stopped speaking to me. I still don't understand what her problem was. I got in trouble in 6th grade for reading during homeroom. Homeroom was like a random 30 minutes period to work on homework, but I always did my homework the night before, so I would just quietly read. For some reason my homeroom teacher hated it. One day she just yelled at me for always reading in her class and told me to do my homework. I told her all of my homework was done. She told me to prove it, so I showed her all of my completed homework. Then she confiscated my book and sent me to the principal's office for being disrespectful. I'm still salty about it. I fucking hate people who equate being proven wrong as disrespectful. What pisses me off the most about it is that it extends beyond the teacher's power trip. 2. By teaching their students that proving someone wrong is disrespectful, they also teach them that all disagreement is bad and must be stamped out. Then updated facts, and also innocuous differences in opinion, are seen as rude and shameful. Duck that shit. Had a teacher in kindergarten threaten to expel me because I was sick and didn't show up the day before. She put me on the spot in front of the whole class telling me not to lie and that she'd call the principal. I cried in front of the whole class not knowing what to do. Apparently she wanted to win some attendance award and thought confronting a child was a good idea. Like bruh, I was fucking 5. Still salty on how she got away with it. Attendance awards seem kinda stupid. There's no way to predict when a student will suddenly have a personal or family issue that they need to skip school or just a class for. It seems incredibly stupid, especially for elementary school. I could see this maybe being a thing in high school where kids like to skip class, but no kid in kindergarten has the ability to choose if they're going to class or not on any given day. My aunt was unpleasant or weird with everyone but always particularly cold to me. One day when I was about 14 she took me aside and said she'd held a grudge against me because of my name. She had wanted to call her first daughter that name but my parents had had a child first and used it. They had no idea she wanted the name and aren't the kind of people who would have done it on purpose. She said she'd tried really hard and had just about forgiven me for it. I just remember being baffled by it and then feeling sorry for her for being that spiteful, to be honest. But it pulled later in comparison with all the other crazy horrible things she did to her own family. Good thing she was only cold to you, but stayed away then. Growing up, my mom's sister absolutely hated me and got her dad to treat me poorly. 2. I learned the reason for her behavior and why that side of the family treated me so horribly. My mom got pregnant with me and I was gonna be born the same year as her sister's kid and she was mad that my mom and I were stealing their spotlight. Edit. I would just like to add I was my mom's second kid, and the first kid was named after my mom's sister. My swimming teacher promised me a candy bar if I jumped off the board when I couldn't swim, and when I did they said they forgot. But I saw them eating one in the lounge. I was 5 and I was betrayed. Another thing that swim teacher did instead of teach me to swim was to try and teach the group how to keep their eyes open underwater and see. We all had goggles and had to take them off to do this. Also, I didn't learn to swim there. I ended up learning at a hotel on vacation when my sister taught me like a year later. Man, that's not just BS, that's dangerous. On the wedding day of my mom's 3rd wedding, I sat in my room alone crying cause it was hard, but I made sure to remove myself cause I didn't want to upset my mom. When my aunt came to check in on my and saw I was crying, she went and told my mom. My mom went out of her way to stop hair and makeup to come into my room for being selfish and trying to ruin her happy day, even though I purposefully tried to not look upset in front of her in the first place. Edit. Oh wow guys, I took a nap and wake up and I've gotten my first awards and this is my top comment ever. Thank you so much. To address some of the questions that have come up. Yes, she is still married to her 3rd husband and I'm grateful for it now because he ended up being great for her even though he had quite the rocky start with me. My mom also finally went to therapy after I had already grown and left the house and was diagnosed properly and given the help she needs, and we now have a solid relationship and she still regularly apologizes for the things she did growing up, while still have some childhood baggage. I've built a very happy life for myself and will definitely use what I learned from my childhood to be a better mom to my kids if I ever have any. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.